Hello, everybody. Welcome to the JTC Podcast. If you're new, my name is Titilope Macaulay, and I am your host. And on today's episode of the JTC Podcast, we're going to be focusing on how to move from a sales role into a C-suite role. And our guest today is a chief sales officer of a renowned tech company here in Nigeria. Guess who that is? But then, before we get started, if you haven't subscribed or you haven't followed, if you're listening on an audio platform right now, do that right away. And yes, even before you start, and share with your friends. We're going on a short break right now, and when we come back, we're going to get started. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Today, I have with me Francis. Francis is the Chief Sales Officer at HubZone. Hi, Francis. Thank you for joining us here.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Titi. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. I was a bit scared this morning. I wasn't so sure, with the protest, everything going on, I wasn't so sure if this was going to happen. But thank you for making it work regardless.
Of course, thank you. I just stopped to mention, it's a Chief Sales Officer at HubZone. So there's sort of been a restructure with HubZone. It's Zone now.
Yeah, so, true. That's true. Thank you. So what went through your mind when I reached out and then I asked for you to be on this episode?
So I wouldn't lie. When you said it, I looked at it, I'm like, okay, first of all, who's this person? And I had to look at who your mutual connections were on LinkedIn, right? And I'm like, okay, how do you just randomly connect with me? How do you know me? So when I saw that, of course, I did a little bit of digging. And I saw what it is you do. I must say I was inspired as well.
Thank you.
By the sort of strides you had made. And I said, you know what, let me support someone. A sister in arms, if I'll put it that way. And yeah, it's just something I was happy to do. Right?
I'm very excited. Yeah, so you are a Chief Sales Officer.
Yes, Vice President Sales and Business Development, Chief Sales Officer, yes. That's what I do for Zone.
That sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. I'm not going to be modest and say it's not. It's actually a lot of work.
I'm not envious right now. And before now, I think that you're a Chief Commercial Officer.
Yes, about that, yeah.
Okay, before we get into what the difference is between those two, and then before we get into, the whole thing, what does being a Chief Sales Officer right now, what does it mean? Then also, what does it mean? Because it's not a very common title.
I get it, yeah.
You either see, VP of Sales, or you see maybe in some companies, Chief Revenue Officer, right? Or, straight CEO and stuff like that. And when I said Chief Sales Officer, I was really intrigued. And then I was really curious into understanding what that is about. Maybe somebody else will be aspiring to be that right now.
Okay, you're absolutely correct. The title Chief Sales Officer isn't a very common one. When you get to more leadership levels within sales, you're likely to see Vice President of Sales, Business Development, Vice President of Business Development, or Chief Commercial Officer, right? I think it's a title, but if you're going to break it down into its constituent parts, it's actually Vice President of Sales and Business Development role. That's what I do. So going down to what it is my day-to-day entails, I'm responsible, as you can assume, I'm responsible for all our strategy and all our objectives and actualizing all the goals for my organization in relation to acquiring customers, customer acquisition, ensuring that those customers stay with us and they pay the right price for the goods for our services. And ensure we can grow our revenue, we can meet our revenue objectives. And last but not least, also in specific areas where we need to collaborate, where we need to partner, ensuring that we can identify the right partners and to make all of this happen. So yeah, that's more or less what I do.
That's very interesting. So what's the difference between that and being a chief commercial officer?
Okay, so when I was Chief Commercial Officer, so first of all, the organization HubZone, like I had mentioned, went through a reorganization, went through a restructure. The way HubZone was structured sort of had different entities, different product verticals within that entity. So I was Chief Commercial Officer for one of those divisional subsidiaries. Now, my role entailed still elements of what I'm doing now, sales, business development, as well as product development, product management. Yes, I could, for the particular subsidiary, it's just chief commercial officer for. I had the first product manager. I sort of started the product team there.
Wow.
Yes.
Intense.
And I did that for a little bit over 1 year before I was graciously assigned to focus more on my core, which is sales and business development. And so that, with that, then there was then, of course, the restructure, the title changed to more reflect the role I am executing.
Wow. Leading business teams, I understand. That's the language that I speak. I can wake up to that. But then, being a business person, being in business roles, and now having to be the one directing or giving directions to product teams, how was that for you? First of all, because it's in two parts.
So I think what helped me is I have a deep level of domain expertise within my industry. So what that has done is, I think when you set out your growth strategy as an organization, there are different approaches you could take. You could decide to say, okay, you want to go full steam ahead and selling, or you want to just adopt more or less a product development strategy that would enable you sort of sell new products to, a defined market or a defined segment. Working in my focus area has been more or less payments and fintech all my career. Now, doing this, working with customers, working with clients and working with partners, understanding the value chain, the different activities that comprises value chain, sort of give me very good understanding to anticipate what customers want, know what customers, how they want it delivered, right, and the price point they'll be willing to pay for it. Now, if you tend to look at the value chain for most organizations, you are getting partners, you're selling products, you're developing those products, and you're pushing it out to market, right? I don't think you'd be a very good product manager if you don't even understand what customers want. So being able to understand. So product management has a lot of elements of marketing in it. You need to be able to say, okay, this is what customers want, and translate it in the right language for the product designers and to the engineers as well. So I think that was what gave me that standard edge, because I had a very good understanding of the industry, had a very good understanding of the market, and I had a very good understanding of the different value chain elements, that make up payment. So that sort of made me excel on that role.
Yeah. Fantastic. I really do agree with you on a very good number of things on that. But then aside how, that was for you, there's another side. How was that for the core product people? Was there...
yes.
Because I can imagine, I can just mentally visualize, what
it was like. Okay, so to be fair, it was quite a very small team at the time when we started. The product manager is someone who I had worked with before, right? Yes, somehow. So he knew me. In fact, it was more or less was like, oh, I would welcome the opportunity to get to work with you again, because he's worked with me, and he's sort of the guy who would always say, you are a very unconventional sales and BD person, Francis. You're the type of person who, you've sold a product or you sold a service or sold solutions to your clients. Now, some of these solutions, I'm not sure if I should be saying this on this podcast.
No, you don't have to.
But sometimes it may require you need to do a couple of customizations, right, to get it to the level which your customers want. And doing that would mean some amount of software development work would need to go into that process. I was more or less the type of person who wouldn't just submit my request. I would follow through that entire software development cycle to be sure it's going the way I wanted it. Like, you promised me this particular date, I was going to get this feature. What's happening? I don't have it yet. I need to please my customer, right? So, doing that would force you to sort of understand the challenges and the constraints they have, and what they needed how you could support them really, because if your colleagues and the other cross-functional teams are happy, you are going to be happy. So doing that made me inquisitive, made me learn a lot about how products are built, and that sort of just complemented my BD knowledge.
Nice. Yeah. As interesting as this sounds, right, for the customers, you would be that salesperson, that BD salesperson that they like, because you go all out for them, ensure that they get what you've promised them, at the time and in the condition that you promised. However, sometimes it might not really go down so well with the other teams because it might then look like this guy does too much. He's always prognosing. Did you ever get
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and it happens, but I think I'd say it comes with the territory, right? And the end justifies the means. If we, I mean, we all, and I'm saying me and my respective colleagues at the time, if we decided to do nothing about it, and we will lose all that opportunity. Yeah, and there'll be some other organization out there. Your competitor is going to deliver that, right?
Effortlessly.
Exactly. You could lose that opportunity, and I don't think anyone rewards losers. I don't want to use that term. No one rewards losers. The market's not going to reward you. You're not going to make enough revenue. You're not going to be able to cover your bills, and everyone is just going to be disgruntled. So it's just going to be a cycle of of unhappiness, if I were going to call it that way. So you could decide to do that hard work, that difficult work of going beyond what your role requires to deliver.
Yeah.
And I think something else I need to mention is I think when I began to hone the skills, a lot more was my entire career had worked in the traditional bank, right? And I'd done all of this. So when I began to do more of this was my first foray into a tech company, and this was 5 years ago. And working in a startup, you hear a lot of people saying things like you're going to have to put on several hats, right? You're going to have to put on several hats. You're going to have to learn how to do a lot of things. And I think that was when I began to develop the skills and I started looking beyond even what my role required and what was needed to close an opportunity. And that was what was exactly. Yes.
Nice. So
I think
emotions, I have to ensure that this works out.
Exactly. So I think that was one of the major things I gained with working in the startup. It's an experience I wouldn't trade anything else for.
Fantastic. So it just sounds like your career, how your career started, already prepared you for the leadership positions when you finally got that. That's fantastic. Have you always wanted to be in a business role?
Yes, I have. Now, interestingly, for my first degree, I studied microbiology. I studied microbiology, and I was the type of, I always told friends at the time and schoolmates that I don't see myself in the lab. I don't see it's not just something I see myself doing. If I wasn't in financial services, if I wasn't in payments, if I found my way to say an FMCG or a brewery plant or something, I would probably be in their commercial department or, working in some sort of role that is closer to where the money is than being in the lab. And I mean, that I always knew that was what it was going to be for me. Yeah. So I'd always wanted to be a business person. Yeah.
Nice. I think for a lot of business people that I've met, regardless of what their background is, they've just always known that, just put me where the money is. That's my thing. Let me go out and let me go and bring that deal. Let me go and face those clients.
That's me.
I think it's a common thing with, our brethren in the industry. That's very interesting. Can you, you already did a breakdown of what your your day-to-day currently looks like. You've already given an insight. Currently you manage the entire strategy, leadership, everything. For people that are trying to move up into that, right? For people because from the beginning you already know if you're the type that wants to climb career ladder or not. I don't think it always happens by accident. You already know if you're the kind of person that wants to go all in, all out, or if you're the kind of person that just wants a good job, and enjoy yourself, and most times already know. It's just in a few cases you just find yourself there by accident, right? So for people that, currently they might not be in such roles, but they already know that this is what I'm going for. How do you, because unlike technical things, right, how to sell, how to prospect, you can just go out and read on that. How do you learn strategy?
Okay. So with strategy, I'm going to break it down into two parts. So, of course, you need to first develop the strategy, and then you need to lead its execution. Basically, strategic planning Now, I would say it's innate for some people, right? You get to find individuals who are quite gifted and who just know
Naturally.
how to, yes, who just know how to set
Wow.
the right course for action on what it is that needs to be done. I say it's an innate ability, but this could have been maybe because of the experiences they had been exposed to growing up as kids, as teenagers, even up to when they joined the labor force. So for some people, it's more or less like that. But for people on the other divide, I would say strategy is something you can learn, right? Of course, you can take up an MBA. You can go for other advanced programs. But the good thing is, regardless whether you have it as an innate skill or something you've developed from years and years of experience, it's something it is you can learn, right? And just going all out to just learn the fundamentals of how to basically formulate strategy for an organization would then refine those skills. It is you have those innate skills or those innate abilities you have. So it's not something you need to be worried about. But one thing I would say is learning strategy by itself without having real world experiences that you can apply to is also not going to work, right? I had mentioned that I have a deep level of domain expertise in what I do, and that sort of already prepared me for the role I was going to fit into. I just recently completed my MBA degree, and what that did, yes, and what that did is it sort of refined, it gave me new perspectives on how I should be thinking about the problems and the opportunities I'm confronted with, right? And it sort of added a lot of refinement to this to say, okay, you've probably been doing this, but you just didn't know there was a more, should I say, theoretical approach that you could apply to certain opportunities you find, and you could get different results as well. So for someone who is starting out, I would say yes, it's something you can learn. It makes better sense when you're complementing your knowledge of strategy with the real world experiences it is you have garnered, right? And I'm going to start out. You're never going to find a management consultant executing better on, say, a go-to-market role than someone who already has those real-world experiences,
Yeah.
right? You're never going to find that. I think the best of both worlds would be someone who probably has been in the business development function. He knows who the clients are. He knows who the partners are,
Being
and then
inside
yes,
of
he
it.
then gets some strategic knowledge, and a mix of all of that. Just you're going to be unstoppable.
Amazing, amazing. For I get the part where you have to be in it every day. You have to have the experience. You have to be working in it, breathing it, living. You have to have that experience. And then I also get the part where you said it can also be learned.
Yeah.
However, one can't be without another. Now, for the learning part, yeah, you can get MBAs and stuff like that. However, is there like a framework for somebody who just wants is there like a framework on how to
Think through problems and how to. Yes, there are several frameworks actually. When it comes to developing strategy, I think the first thing is even understanding what is the strategy for, what's the problem you're looking to solve. Either saying, so take for instance from a business perspective, there are usual problems are usually in three parts. So there are three aspects. You're either saying, okay, you want to retain a position, you want to consolidate on what you're doing, you're probably a market leader in your space, you want to retain that position, or you want to gain market share, so probably an upstart, a challenger brand, and you want to gain that, or you want to regain a position. You were there before, you're no longer there, you want to do that. So whatever strategy it is you're looking to develop is going to sort of be applicable to any of these three problems. All this, whatever problem it is you're looking at is going to be broadly categorized into any of these three. And from a framework perspective, of course, there are lots and lots to it. There are a couple of those I use in my day to day. I don't want to start sounding a whole very, very theoretical and all that, but you could probably research on Ansof's growth strategies. You could also look at the BCG growth matrices. This may sound generic for people who have some understanding about strategy, but they're actually very applicable in what it is we do. Are you looking to consolidate on your position? Are you looking to grow? Or are you even looking to retreat? You probably have made some losses and you just want to fall back and say, okay, how can I, you know, reorientate my strategy to deliver better output. So yeah, there are actually different frameworks, some of which I had just mentioned now.
Nice. Very interesting. So like these are things that, even if you're just starting out, you could go on, read about, and, then apply, see how it works for your situation, see how it works for your market, see how it works for your product. Very interesting. As a leader as someone who has been in multiple leadership positions, I cannot imagine, what the people problems that you might have initially had. One of the episodes that we've had in the past, we had a guest who said, initially for her, it was like, take all the people away. Let me just do my job and I'm good. And I've realized she's not the only person who's had, I have had, we were having, the conversation earlier today. For you, what was that like? What was like, with people, what was it like for you?
So, first of all, with leadership, I think everyone can be a leader, regardless of what your organizational title or levels is. But of course, there are then those individuals who leadership is expected of, and that's what you probably call people in management cadre. So anyone who is new to management or who is new to leading teams, I think the first, especially if you've been an exceptional talent, you've been a very good specialist or individual contributor, I think the biggest challenge you're going to experience is in being able to delegate effectively.
Yes.
You will more often than not find yourself executing on tasks that you probably shouldn't be doing. You have the business doing, and you'll be doing that for several reasons. One, it could just be you trusting your own abilities better than other people, and this doesn't mean that the reports you have can't do that task, but you just trust that you'll be able to do it well. It could also mean that you haven't quite honed your communication skills, so you're not able to quite communicate and set clear expectations for what it is you see you want to be delivered, right? And the outcomes it is you're looking towards. So a mix of all of that, and then because with goals, it's usually time bound. You have a limited time to deliver on this, and then you're just saying, you know what, I'm not going to. I'm not going to look at my reports. I'm not going to look at everybody. I'm just going to focus on this and do it myself. But at the end of the day, you have limited bandwidth. You can't do everything. You can't be everywhere at the same time, right? So I think that's it. So not being able to delegate effectively and learning how to do that quick, so that decision making is faster and you can even, gain better in terms of outputs and in terms of results.
Yeah, that's very insightful, because when you mentioned some of the things that you mentioned, there were things that I caught myself and I realized that I was guilty of, so many months ago. And yeah, it's very easy for somebody who's a very effective individual contributor to then begin to trust. You're just scared. Don't stain my white. I've always been known to deliver.
Very true.
What if there's that, and it can be a very difficult transition period. It can be. It's something that it's an easy mistake for all of us to make.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And I do think that I really do think that another part is being able to reflect, because sometimes people do this and they don't even know they're doing it. So I think one very important trait that you should have as a leader is being able to sit back, just pause everything you're doing, sit back and reflect on how you're doing things. Sometimes some people don't know that are not so great at delegating, so they delegate wrongly. The things that they really do not need to delegate, but because it's not the core thing, they feel like, okay, you just go work on that document. I would handle this client. How would things like that, right? So it really does pay to sometimes sit back and try to look at what you're doing, reflect, and measure, and most importantly, have somebody else you're talking to, who's been much more experienced in leading, managing people.
I think I would say there's no such thing as a perfect leader.
No, there isn't.
Yes, we are all flawed, right?
Yeah.
We're all flawed. There's no such thing, and it's good to realize your mistakes, or your shortcomings. Shortcomings, they create or other opportunities, right, for learning. And it makes sense to sort of realize them in good enough time so that you can develop on them for those you that have it. And also, you could also benefit from having very, shall I say, generous followers and people who wouldn't be too afraid to just let you know, okay,
You messed up.
yes, this is what you could be doing better. Or I think you could benefit from that because, like I said, no one is well flawed and no one is all knowing, and mistakes just provide an opportunity for you to be a better leader. That's how I see it.
True. Yeah. And another thing is, were you one of those people that kicked off in startup companies and then they didn't really have, because that's another problem that a lot of people have. The tech space in Nigeria is very young, right? And then a lot of people kicked off their careers in tech in companies that were just starting out. Some of them were probably first hires and they've grown with the company. And one of the perks of growing with a company is you just get moved up, except you're really bad at your job.
And then you'll be moved out.
And even some companies are not very quick at firing.
Yes.
They just like leave you and hope that you leave, but they don't want to be the ones to fire you. Some companies do that, right? But then in most cases, you grow with the company and you just automatically have people that you lead in. And then these people, this is like their first experience. They've never really been in situations where they've had people that to learn from that they were leading. Were you one of those people?
Thankfully, no.
Oh, cool.
I didn't have that. I didn't have that experience. So I joined a startup after 8 years in banking, right? Yes. So I had the privilege of working in a very structured environment, right? A very structured environment with laid down processes. There was a process for everything. If you want to purchase staple pins, if you want to purchase dispenser water for your office or everything, there was a laid down process, even policies, procedural documents on how to do even the simplest of things, right? And banks are very structured.
Yeah,
They're actually very structured institutions to work with. So I had the benefit of working with one of the largest banks in Nigeria, even Africa. And I spent quite a great deal of time there, learning a lot from my colleagues, and my supervisors at the time. So I didn't quite. It was quite easy for me to see what the gaps were and what the shortcomings were when I then ventured into a startup. It was very easy for me to see, okay, how things should be done, and what the startups were also getting right, because it wasn't just all that the startups weren't doing what the startup wasn't doing what they should do. They were also getting things right. And I think the one thing you would find with most startups is that the ability, I'll call it the capability to move fast, right? You see an opportunity, you identify an opportunity on Monday.
Yeah.
By Friday, you've converted it. Case closed. Contracts have been executed and everything.
Solution is out.
Yes. Now, with more traditional organizations, larger organizations, things don't quite move that fast, right? So, with startups, you have that and all that. So, yeah. So, what I would say is, there are lots of individuals, and I think what they could do, you could benefit from working for a startup, working for a venture who invests a lot in learning and development, or you could seek out a mentor, right? It's something you can seek out a mentor from traditional, more established companies to just basically tell you what you should be doing. Every large organization today more or less started as a startup.
True.
Right? I know in traditional, you say VC terms, you say, okay, no, startups are companies that have been put together, ventures have been put together to grow fast and all that, which is not wrong, but every company, no matter how large it is, from the Amazons of this world, the Facebooks, and Apple and all that, every large organization today started as a startup. So if they can get it right, for some of them, they had founders who never had any real world working experience before.
True.
So if they could get it right, I don't think that should serve as a limitation for anyone. You can, and if the organization you're working for at that particular moment isn't doing so much in terms of investing in you to hone those natural skills you have, you can actually invest in yourself, right? Whatever it is you learn to upskill yourself from a professional perspective, the ROI is usually, I can't even assign a particular number to it, but it's something you'll be glad to do, that you would have done. If not for, for your personal aspirations or your personal ambitions or for reasons of personal fulfillment, you would even get to see it in terms of the amount that hits your account at the end of the month. So yeah, I would say it shouldn't serve as a limitation for anyone. You can invest in yourself. I am a major proponent for professional development. Yes. So yeah, that's it.
Let's talk about hiring. Oh my gosh, I feel like there's so much to unpack. So hiring, it's an essential part of every business. Now, when we say this, people think of the human resource departments, right? But then, as a leader, hiring is another important part of your job.
True.
Because while the HR teams will get things started, it is your duty to then decide and then say, oh, this person that I'm picking, right? This person out of selection, this person I feel is in the best position to do this. And so whatever decision that you make, in a way, it can undo their hard work.
Sure.
Right? So how have you navigated, hiring right? Because we just say hire right, but it's also easy.
So, well, I'm just going to try to summarize this as much as I can. Hiring is actually an art. Yes, there are lots of the science too, but it's mainly an art. And I would say, no matter how skilled or experienced you are, as a manager, as a leader, you're looking to hire for talent, you're looking to beef up your team. You are, for the most part, just making an educated guess. That's what you're doing.
True.
Right? And some of us, depending on how experienced you have been doing this, will be able to just make those guesses with a with a lesser degree of having hires that don't turn out right than others.
True.
That's what I'll say. I think we have found ourselves to be in a very peculiar situation in Nigeria. We do understand what's happening with brain drain. Lots of skilled professionals are seeking green pastures in other countries and other economies. So it even sort of puts more pressure on what it is you can realistically achieve. But nonetheless, hiring is actually, you're making an educated guess. You can learn from your mistakes. The one thing I would say is that do not ignore red flags. Do not ignore red flags. Very early on, trust your instincts. If you are, say you have identified a particular prospect or an applicant who you want to join your team, and there's just something about that particular prospective candidate that doesn't sit right with you, speak about it with other managers, speak about it with other leaders, speak about it to even your own bosses, right? And let them know. It could be that at the end of the day, you didn't really have much to be worried about, and that would be good. But what you've done is that you socialized it, and people can come with their own experiences and tell you, oh, I don't think this is something that you should really worry about. Then you just pass it off as something that you would walk through, and that prospective candidate joins your team, and you then have to deal with that problem then. Especially because hiring is very expensive.
Yes, it is.
You then need to start talking about how much it is you have invested in getting the hire to join your team, resourcing them with the right tools to work, and you probably having to take that difficult decision of having to let them go.
And it's
as well.
Consuming.
It is. Hiring is time consuming.
I don't like it when because you're already busy, you already have a lot on your plate, and then you have to include it's time consuming.
Yeah.
Is there been like any steps or processes, particularly, of course, the HR department would have their own process, but like you as a manager, has there been like processes or things, aside just like checking out red flags, like processes, maybe step by step, that has helped you? Because hiring sales talent is not easy.
Hiring sales talent is yeah.
Then hiring sales leaders. It's another kind of, I don't want to say hell, but like, it's hard.
I would say I have a system.
Okay.
It's something I got to develop. I use it only for myself. Don't quote me on this.
Hold
I use it only for myself.
promise.
I call it the knowledge relationship matrix, especially if you are hiring for sales talents. And what this helps me do is to assign scores, or have a coefficient and assign scores to say what's the level of this prospective candidate's knowledge, knowledge of the product they should be selling, knowledge of the industry, knowledge of the supply chain, the value chain, their competitors as well, and knowledge of the market. Putting all of that together and saying, okay, what and even more educational stuff in terms of qualifications and all of that. Do they have the right background? In terms of, do they have a degree or things like that? Do they have a second degree and things like that? So this is something like this. It's I'm just training it all about. It's a bit sketchy here, but it was a process I designed that is a bit more, detailed than this. Then you then also get to look at the quality of the relationships that they have, especially with, and I'm saying this particularly with B2B sales, right? Especially when you're going up market, when you're selling to enterprise clients and organizations as well, where relationships sort of dictate everything you're doing. Yeah, but relationships in itself, without you being someone of value or you having some substance to offer, is not going to have. And that's why I say it sort of complements each other. Knowledge and relationships. What sort of relationships do you have in terms of prospects you're looking to put through, and even in terms of internal relationships as well you have, and that you can handle. So that's my own system. That's what's working for me. But at the end of the day, it's still an educated guess, right?
Yeah.
Because you only know what you do.
And you see reality as
course,
as time goes on.
Yes.
Interesting. So for people who want to move from being individual contributors, they want to be in situations where they then become leaders. People in entry level roles at the moment looking to make that move later. How would you advise that they best prepare themselves? How can they best show? Because beyond, you can have it in your head that you want to be up there and people outside don't get the message, right? How can they best show that, they are
ready for? Yeah. Well, so I'm going to say it more from the point of view like I'm, giving out an advice. I would say, do not shy away from responsibility. The best way to get a job you aspire to is to begin to do the job that you haven't been officially delegated to do.
Sure.
So take on more responsibility. You're an individual contributor. You see your boss, you see what they're doing. You like what they're doing. Don't be the individual, so to say, where if your boss is, maybe he needs some help, he needs some assistance, or he's not even available and there's something that needs to be done, and you just shy away from it, and you just think your boss's boss is not observing, is not sitting and all that. The truth of the matter is that people watch and people are observing. They do know if you have the right capacity for that new role. And in my career, I've gotten to see colleagues who were individual contributors who started that way, and an opening came, and just decided, okay, let's just try this person out there, and they they exceeded everyone's expectation.
Wow.
So to say. So for me, I would say the best way, you shouldn't really see it, or necessarily see it like you are doing more work more than what you are being paid for. You shouldn't see it that way. I know, yes, and I know there's going to be different thoughts and opinion on this, but if you really want to learn, you want to get you want to be given official responsibility and recognition beyond what it is you do, you need to do more than what it is you're currently doing.
Sure.
That's, I think, the best advice I can give you. And even if your current organization and your current employer doesn't reward you for that, the market will reward you.
Yeah.
There is some other organization or some other employer out there, and it could even be a colleague, a senior colleague in a cross-functional in another team, who has watched you and knows you have the capacity for that, who would say, you know what, I know someone who will be excellent at this job. Let's get them on board. And it happens every day. We see it. If you want to be a backbencher, I mean, that's good. But yeah, this sort of opportunity, some people are lucky. It lands on your lap without you having to do much. But if you want to go fast, you should learn to take on more responsibility than you've been officially delegated.
So how do you balance, wanting to step up when the opportunity shows? Because a lot of times the opportunities don't scream.
Mm-hmm.
They're just very silent.
True.
Then it takes a different level of discernment to see that, okay, let me take... Sometimes it's not even... It's subconscious. A lot of times. You don't even know that you're doing it. But then, at the end of the day, you still run the risk of looking like... What's your problem?
Overdo. You're doing too much.
I get called that a lot. So, yeah. So, I understand how that feels. How do you manage that?
Well, I think that's something you may have to learn to live with. You can't please everybody.
No, you can't.
You're not jollof rice. You can't please everyone. I think that's something you should be looking forward to. It's good risk, really, what's the upside? You keep doing that, and someday you'll be rewarded with higher responsibility, even beyond your peers that were probably saying you were doing too much. Because you will never really get anyone senior to you in an organization saying that, right? About you saying you are doing too much. It's usually your peers. Yeah, exactly. You would usually only get that from your peers, but you are going to be rewarded, and it's something you would have to be. I'm not saying you shouldn't be a personable person. I mean, you should just try to be a likable person. You should be someone people like as much as you can. You can be, because you can't control what people feel about you. You can only try. But yeah, it's something you just have to learn to live with. I find it. I don't think I have come across any very accomplished person who isn't a very busy person who doesn't get to do a lot of work.
Sure.
You would hardly find anyone who just sits home and lounges and doesn't do much. And it may appear that way to onlookers, like, oh, this person doesn't seem to be doing much. But I'm sure when you go within, you see that they're doing much. So it's something you just have to learn to live with. I think all in all, what I'm trying to say is you should be more intrapreneurial, right? You should just learn to seek out challenges, learn to deliver on them, and yeah.
So we've had situations, we've had people who give their all to companies. We've had people who take up things even when they're not being told, and it has not really favored them.
Sure.
I've seen the number of situations where people take on more than they bargain for, more than just out of, oh my God, my company needs this, let me step in. My company needs that, let me step in. And then it just becomes their job. And nothing really comes out of it.
So I think to respond to this, I'm just going to reflect on something I learned from Chike Onya. He's a very renowned emotional intelligence instructor, an expert. And he said, so you have your knowledge, you have your experience, you have your skills, you're trying to put all of this together to achieve a desired positive result, so to say. Now, look at it this way. And I'm just going to give an analogy. You work in an organization, you do everything it is you need to have done right. You need to have done right. Appraisals come and they go. You probably get a fair appraisal and you're expecting to be rewarded either by way of promotion or something. And that doesn't happen. Of course, you'll be dejected. You're human. You should feel that way. Then what do you then decide to do? You say you wouldn't then give in your best in the next appraisal cycle. You're not going to do anything. Next reporting period, you're just going to chill. Now, it could be that in that next reporting period, probably whatever mistakes that happened the previous time were now going to probably be rectified, but you don't now even have the performance to support it. And they'll be like, okay, so this guy wants to reward. This guy was saying did well before and wanted to reward. With this performance you have now, we can't reward you. And you get passed on the second time, so you spent more time now, right? or you could have been doing what it is you wanted to do, right? And you would more likely than not get rewarded. And even if you are not rewarded, then you can just, just take it to stride and say, I think I've given my best here, and begin to look for, begin to look for other options. Everyone is, we just talked about hiring. Everyone is looking to hire someone who can give a bit more than say who's looking, we're all looking for to hire people who can, just exceed our best expectations, and that's it. And the only way you can do that is just being that go-getter and doing what it is you need to do. You get rewarded. It's a philosophy I personally believe in. It's a mantra I believe in. And I know what I'm saying. There's going to be exceptions. It's not cut and dry. There are going to be exceptions, but this is just what I believe in.
Interesting. So what happens when the promotion isn't coming? Right? The part where living might not really be something you want to do. And in an environment where because it's not in every environment that this is applicable.
Of course.
Okay. In some environments, if you really do like ask for it, right, you can get it. But in some environments, if you don't ask for it, you won't get it.
Yeah.
In such environments, not everybody knows how to ask for things. Everybody knows how to go and say, let me start conversation about this is what I think I deserve, and then this is what I've done. But then everybody knows how to start such conversations. Do you have any advice on on how one can navigate such waters?
So this is a very tricky question. It isn't one of those like I would say it's not cut and dry, right? In doing this, obviously the first your first port of call should be the people department, the HR team, to just express whatever grievances you may have and put it out there. You should also be looking to speak to your supervisor as well if it's someone who has a listening ear. And ultimately, so I think this happens to be one of those challenges where you will just have to summon that courage to even go when you're not getting the responses you want to still take it a step further. And you could do that by even interacting with other leaders within that organization you are friendly with, and you could express whatever challenges it is you are having, right? I know this is not very applicable in many organizations, especially in very large organizations. It's probably may not be very practical to do this. But as much as possible, you need to make your voice heard. You need to ensure that whatever it is you are feeling, whatever grievance it is you felt, you are feeling at the time, you can express it, and it's probably documented. You should, and it could be that maybe your own understanding of what the outcomes you should be delivering might actually differ from what the organization is looking at. And you just feel you are putting in a lot of efforts, but it's not translating to results. That's very important. You may put in a lot of efforts. You are not getting any results. At the end of the day, I find that you may not necessarily be rewarded for that. But at the same time, there could be external factors that are not your making. There could be other internal factors that are not your making, that you may have dependencies even within your organization that are impacting on your ability
to deliver results. So
you need to make this known. Most organizations are not perfect, right? And so
they're run by humans.
You need to exploit that feedback loop, that feedback mechanism as much as possible in your favor. That's it. Yeah.
So last question. Personal development.
Yes.
Right. What have been your go-to resources, or when you see somebody who's trying to level up and then move up, what are the things that come to your head to say that you say, this is something that would help this person? What are such resources for you?
Okay. Apart from the obvious, I'm someone who, like I told you, I believe so much in personal development and professional development. I got into this stage of my career and I said, this MBA you've been pushing on for so long, just go and complete it, right? It was one of the most demanding periods of my professional life, I'll put it that, because I had to work full time and do it. So it wasn't even travel and all that. It wasn't funny, right? Doing it, but I was able to do it. So I would say, I think the best way to level up is to take yourself seriously. Take a bet on yourself, invest in yourself as much as you can. Invest in external resources, try to upskill on what you know. Don't just dwell so much on your experiences and what it is your organization has delegated for you to do, right? Invest in yourself. Take on as many courses that are relevant to what it is you do, or if you're looking to transition, take on courses that are relevant to this. Seek out mentors and have something of value as well to offer, because you shouldn't just be going to a mentor and saying, okay, this is what I want, this is what I want. You should be able to, have it, show that you are even someone worth that mentor investing their time to. And this is sort of like the advice I'll be able to give to someone who is looking to level up and who is saying, I want to take my career seriously and I want to go higher. Yeah.
This has been an amazing session.
Right, all right.
I wasn't, very sure of how this was going to go, but because online particularly, I didn't really see so many videos, features and things like that, and I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. Yeah, of course, I know that there would be a lot of insightful information, but then I wasn't so sure of, the extent to which it would be, and this has been very insightful. This has been very helpful for me. I'm glad we did this. Actually, our pre-session, pre-episode session.
We had the podcast before the podcast.
Yeah, we had the podcast before the podcast. Sorry, maybe sometime we'll have a live session and then...
I think you should put together an exclusive.
Yeah. We should do that. We should do that. Yeah, we had a podcast for the podcast. Not sorry. And it's been very insightful. Mm-hmm. And mentors, right? Because our conversation reinforced the need for wanting to do this. One cannot overemphasize the need to listen or even work with people that have been on those paths. It just saves you stress. Mm-hmm. It saves you some regrets. Yeah. Saves you some mistakes, because they're still going to make you regretless. But that really does help. Thank you so much for making time out to spend time with us.
It's my pleasure, Titi. I've enjoyed speaking with you.
And I really do hope that in the near future, we can do this again. Hopefully.
Obviously, I'll be happy to be a guest here again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody that has joined. I hope you had a fun session like I did. If you haven't subscribed, again, if you're new, if you're just joining, if you haven't followed on our streaming platforms, please do that right away. And drop your comments. We want to read your thoughts. We want to know what you think. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. We'll definitely pass them across to Francis. And he will be kind enough to provide the answers. Like, share with your friends. Bye, everybody. Catch you in the next episode.
Yeah. Bye.